It was almost midnight when Elena left her friend's house. She had promised her mum she'd be home before 10, but as usual, she lost track of time. Her neighborhood was quiet, almost too quiet, and she hated walking alone at night. The streetlights worked only halfway down the road, and the rest of the street was drowned in thick shadows. Pulling her jacket tight, she hurried along, telling herself not to look around, not to think about the eerie silence pressing against her. But as she passed the old Wilson house, the one that had been abandoned for nearly 15 years, her steps slowed. Everyone in town whispered about that house. They said the last family who lived there just disappeared. Dishes were still on the table when police entered, clothes hanging in closets, beds unmade. But no bodies, no signs of struggle, just gone. Elena hated even walking near it, but tonight she had no choice. She pushed her headphones in and tried to ignore the looming dark shape of the decaying building. That was when she felt it, eyes on her. At first, she thought it was paranoia. She walked faster, clutching her phone, but the prickling sensation on the back of her neck wouldn't go away. Against her better judgment, she glanced sideways at the house. That's when she froze. There was someone standing in the upstairs window. At first, she thought her eyes were playing tricks. Maybe it was a reflection, maybe just a shadow. But no, the figure was there. A man. Pale face pressed against the glass, watching her. Elena's throat went dry. She wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't move. The man didn't blink. He didn't move, just stared at her with a strange tilt of the head, as though studying her. Finally, her body reacted. She bolted, sprinting down the street, heart hammering so loudly she thought it would burst. She didn't look back until she was halfway home. When she did, the window was empty. Shaking, she tried to convince herself it was a squatter, or maybe even some stupid prank. She didn't tell her mum when she got home. She knew she'd never be allowed to walk alone again. But later that night, as she was brushing her teeth, she heard a tap. Her bathroom window. She froze, toothbrush hanging in her mouth, foam dripping down her chin. Slowly, she turned toward the window. The same pale face was there. She dropped the toothbrush and screamed, sprinting out of the bathroom, nearly tripping down the stairs. Her mother rushed out of her bedroom in alarm, but when they went back together, the window was empty again. Her mum tried to convince her it was stress, or maybe a nightmare, but Elena knew what she saw. The next night, it happened again. This time, she was lying in bed, phone in hand, trying to distract herself from her nerves. She had left her lamp on, the light casting soft shadows across the room. Around 2 a.m., her phone battery died, plunging her into silence. She sighed, placing it on her nightstand. That's when she heard it scratching. Very faint, like nails dragging slowly across glass. Her stomach knotted. She didn't want to look. She turned toward her bedroom window. And there he was again. The pale man. His grin stretched wider than humanly possible, lips peeling back to reveal rows of jagged teeth. His hand was flat against the glass, fingers long and sharp, dragging across it with a screeching sound. Elena screamed, scrambling for the door. She ran to her mother's room, begging her to call the police. When the officers arrived, they searched the house, the yard, even the roof. Nothing. No footprints in the dirt, no fingerprints on the glass. They told her it was probably a nightmare or a prank, but Elena saw the pity in their eyes. For the next week, it didn't happen. She started to believe maybe she imagined it. Maybe it was stress and exhaustion. Until one night, she woke to the sound of her window sliding open. Her heart stopped. Very slowly, she turned her head. The pale man was crawling inside. His body moved wrong, jerky, spider-like, as though his bones bent the wrong way. His head tilted too far, eyes rolling in opposite directions, mouth splitting open with wet cracks. He dropped silently onto her floor, limbs folding and unfolding in grotesque motions. Elena's scream stuck in her throat. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She was frozen as the creature crawled toward her bed, claws scraping softly against the wood. When it finally reached her, it leaned close, so close she could feel its breath against her cheek. And then, in a rasping whisper that sounded like broken glass grinding together, it said, "I like it when you walk alone." The next morning, Elena's mother found her bed empty. The police searched, neighbors searched, but she was never seen again. Her bedroom window, however, was wide open. And sometimes, on quiet nights, neighbors swear they see a pale face staring from that same window of the old Wilson house. Story 2, The Hitchhiker in the Rearview. It was nearly 1 a.m. when David was driving home from his late shift. He worked at a gas station on the edge of town, and the road back to his small apartment was long, winding, and completely empty at night. He actually enjoyed the quiet most nights. Windows down, cool air blowing in, music humming low from the radio. But tonight felt different. The night was heavy, the air thick. His headlights barely seemed to cut through the darkness. About 15 miles down the road, he saw her. A woman standing on the shoulder, thumb sticking out. David slowed automatically. She looked desperate, clutching a small bag, hair tangled, eyes wide and anxious. He hesitated for a moment, his mother's warning ringing in his head. Never pick up strangers at night. But his guilt won out. He pulled over. The woman climbed in silently. She didn't smile, didn't thank him. She just shut the door and stared straight ahead. David cleared his throat. "Where you headed?" she whispered. "Just down the road." Her voice was flat, cold. It made him uneasy. But he nodded and pulled back onto the road. The car filled with silence. After a few minutes, he tried again. "Rough night." She turned her head slowly to look at him. Her eyes were dark, empty, and when she spoke, her lips barely moved. "Don't worry. I won't keep you long." The way she said it sent a chill straight through him. He gripped the wheel tighter, suddenly wishing he had just kept driving. He glanced at her again, only to realize she wasn't there. His stomach lurched. The passenger seat was empty. Heart racing, he pulled over, breathing hard. He swore she had been sitting right there. He even felt the weight shift when she got in. After a few minutes convincing himself he was overtired, he drove on. That's when he saw her again. Standing on the side of the road. The same woman. Thumb sticking out. David slammed the brakes, heart hammering. It was impossible. He stared as she tilted her head, slowly, unnaturally, and smiled. Her teeth were wrong, too many jagged like broken glass. Panicking, he hit the accelerator and sped past. But in the rearview mirror, he saw her, sitting in the back seat. His breath caught in his throat. Just stared into the mirror as her face stretched into a grin wider than humanly possible. Her eyes glowed faintly, and she whispered something he couldn't quite hear. Hands trembling, David swerved, nearly crashing into the ditch. He spun the wheel, slammed the brakes, and the car skidded to a stop. He jumped out, running into the empty road, gasping for air. When he finally turned back, the car was empty. But the back door was still open. Gathering courage, he peered inside. Nothing. Just his jacket and a few receipts. He closed the door, still shaking, and sat in the driver's seat. He nearly jumped out of his skin when he heard it. A whisper. From directly behind him. He snapped the mirror down. The woman was there again. Right behind his seat, face pressed close, whispering directly into his ear. "You should have never stopped." The next morning, a trucker found David's car on the side of the road, doors wide open, engine still running. No sign of him. The only thing left behind was a smear of blood across the inside of the rearview mirror. Story 3. Footsteps in the hall. When Michael moved into his new apartment, he thought he'd finally caught a lucky break. The rent was cheap, the place was bigger than anything he'd ever lived in, and it was close to work. The landlord didn't ask too many questions, just handed him the keys and told him to ignore the noise at night. Michael laughed it off at the time. He figured the building was old. Maybe the pipes rattled or the neighbors upstairs were heavy walkers. He'd dealt with worse. The first night was fine. The second, too. But on the third night, something changed. He was sitting on his couch watching TV when he heard it. Footsteps. Slow, heavy steps moving down the hallway outside his apartment. At first, he didn't think much of it. He had neighbors, after all. But the sound didn't fade. It passed his door, stopped, and then doubled back. Michael muted the TV, straining his ears. The steps were right outside his door now. And then tap, tap, tap. 3 sharp knocks. He waited, expecting someone to call out, but the hallway remained silent. He slowly got up, crept to the door, and peeked through the peephole. No one was there. His heart thudded. He stood there for a long time, staring, before shaking his head. Probably kids playing a prank. He went back to the couch, trying to shake off the unease. But just as he sat down, the footsteps started again. This time inside his apartment. Michael shot to his feet. His blood went cold. He lived alone. The sound came from the hallway leading to his bedroom. Slow, deliberate footsteps, dragging slightly, like someone was taking their time. He grabbed a baseball bat from the closet and crept forward, calling out, "Who's there?" Silence. Then closer, step, step, step. He flicked on the light. The hallway was empty. His bedroom door was half open. The footsteps stopped. Michael's grip tightened on the bat as he pushed the door fully open. The room was empty, perfectly normal. No one hiding under the bed, no one in the closet. But when he turned to leave, he saw it. On the carpet just in front of the door were wet footprints. Bare feet. Larger than his own. Michael didn't sleep that night. He sat on the couch, lights blazing, bat in his hands, jumping at every sound. By morning, the footprints were gone. The next night, it started again. This time, he locked his bedroom door. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, every muscle tense. Around 2 a.m., the footsteps came back. Slow. Heavy. Moving down the hall. They stopped outside his locked door. And then scratching. Long, slow scratches against the wood, just inches from his head. Michael covered his ears, shaking, whispering to himself that it wasn't real. But the scratching grew louder, more frantic, until suddenly silence. He stayed awake until dawn. The third night, he set up his phone to record. He wanted proof, something to convince himself he wasn't losing his mind. He locked his door again, set the phone on his dresser, and tried to sleep. At 3 a.m., the footsteps returned. Michael sat up, heart pounding, as the sound moved closer. He whispered, "Please go away, please." The knob to his locked door began to turn. Slowly, carefully. It rattled violently, then stopped. Silence. Michael barely breathed until morning. When he checked his phone, his hands shook. The video was dark, grainy, but the audio was clear. Footsteps. Scratching. The doorknob rattling. And then, just before the video cut off, a whisper. "Let me in." That was the last night Michael spent in the apartment. The landlord didn't look surprised when he broke the lease. He just shrugged and said, "Most don't last a week." To this day, the apartment sits empty. But neighbors still swear they hear footsteps in the hall late at night. He just shrugged and said, "Most don't last a week." To this day, the apartment sits empty. But neighbors still swear they hear footsteps in the hall late at night. But neighbors still swear they hear footsteps in the hall late at night.